While I was asleep, my younger cousin assaulted me.
But I never complained because I trusted him.
It started when I was 5 years old and continued till I was 10.
During my preparation for the class 10 English examination, I would often visit a family friend. He used to teach me. He was over 80 years old at that time. I remember him explaining to me the process of having sex in detail and where babies come from. He said that a child's heart is the most sacred and would touch my breasts, calling it pure. I was 15 years old. And my story is not unique. There's a saying that not all men, certainly not every man is an abuser, but nearly every woman carries the scars of sexual abuse right from their childhood. I spoke to several women who shared many stories of how their innocence was violated, leaving scars far deeper than what meets the eye. And believe me, I didn't even have to go beyond a 400-meter radius to find these victims. These are their stories, our voices, and our collective pain and experiences. These survivor stories come from real women we interviewed over the past 1 month. But to protect their identities, we have got other women to narrate their stories.
I was 11 years old and used to take tuition for maths at home. This person was teaching me maths for quite a few months. One day, due to some emergency, my parents had to leave the house for maybe an hour or less. It was then that this so-called teacher sexually assaulted me. I wasn't a teenager then, as my menstruation had not started, nor did I have breasts. But this man touched my private parts in the absence of my parents and forcefully kissed me several times.
When I was in 6th grade, my elder brother and I would rush from school to our swimming classes, hoping the pool and the bathrooms would be empty. There was a staff member I called Bhaiya who was always around. He'd often enter the girls' washroom, but I never complained because I trusted him. One day while I was changing into my swimsuit, he came in with a little boy. I told him he should leave before someone complained, but he said he was just getting a swimming tube for the boy. I still remember what happened next. He stood behind me under the pretext of helping me with my swim cap. Suddenly, his hands slipped under my swimsuit. That's how my assault began. I froze. I couldn't move. I recall standing in front of the mirror and witnessing his hands pressing and rubbing my chest. He even had his fingers touching my genitals and began grinding behind me. But he did not stop there. He didn't just force kiss me all over my back, but he even left bite marks. When he started removing my clothes, something in me struck and I pushed him away. Those marks healed with time, but this incident scarred me for my life. The most traumatic part about it was the little boy who was the sole witness to my assault. His traumatized eyes still haunt me to date.
Someone from my own family used to touch my vagina. And no, I could never say a word. I would stay there all confused and frozen. Nothing about it felt right. I later learned even my mom had faced sexual abuse in her own house, but nobody trusted her. They all blamed her, and the family got into this big fight and abandoned her. I think I understood what it's like to be a woman in this family. And how terrifying could it be if you ever dare to speak about the abuse?
When I was in fourth standard, I spent a few summer days at my paternal uncle's home. I started noticing something strange. My clothes would be out of place when I woke up in the morning. When I told my aunt, she dismissed me. Then one day, I woke up to find my hand inside my uncle's pants. He made me hold his penis. Years later, when I was in 11th standard, I visited another relative's place for a family gathering. While I was asleep, my younger cousin assaulted me. He was touching me and he too made me touch his penis. He was the son of the same Tauji.
My first cousin did things to me that I can never explain. He was 8 years older than me. It started when I was 5 years old and continued till I was 10. When I told my family about it, they brushed it off, saying it must have been a nightmare. Many problems in my life were linked to that one experience. And just one discussion about it, brought it all back.
A young couple lived next to us in my hometown. They had been married for 6 months. At that time, I was just 9 years old. One day, while my family was out of town, my mother left me at their house. I ended up sleeping next to the woman. Her husband was out for his night shift duty. The woman sexually assaulted me. She took my hand inside her salwar, made me touch her vagina, and she forcefully kept kissing me. And then she rubbed her breast against my chest.
Some refrained from coming forward due to family concerns. Some didn't want to revisit the haunting memory. This is a crisis we can no longer afford to ignore. Child sexual abuse can have profound and long-lasting effects on survivors, impacting their physical, emotional, psychological, and social well-being throughout adulthood. It alters how the brain handles stress, leading to emotional struggles like depression and anxiety. Survivors often face issues with self-esteem, intimacy, and relationships, and may experience chronic pain or turn to substance abuse as a way to cope. The trauma can also affect the social lives, career, and parenting abilities.
To overcome the trauma, I had to go through so many therapy sessions, just trying to fade the haunting memories of being touched and assaulted. I've had panic attacks. Even now, I can't stand to think about it. It's a pain that never really goes away.
I had forgotten about it for the longest time, until one day when I started to list all the abuses I endured as a child and why I have major trust issues and intimacy issues. The foremost reason why I prefer being single than explaining anyone or letting anyone come close to me.
It took me years to crawl out of that darkness. Even now, the memories still shake me to my core.
The incident left me broken. Now I regularly struggle with anxiety and depression, taking pills and seeing my psychiatrist regularly. Whenever the past flashes back, my body tightens up from the trauma.
Though healing is possible with support and therapy, the impact of abuse touches every aspect of a survivor's life and extends to their loved ones. We must face this painful reality and act. For every moment we delay, another child's world is broken.